Hey everyone, it's Pastor Scott Fielder, and welcome to another edition of Hope Lutheran Church in Hollywood's online midweek devotional. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Please make sure to subscribe on either of those platforms so that you can get notifications about not only when this devotional goes live, but also our weekly online Sunday service as well. Thank you so much to everyone who continues to support us here at Hope. We appreciate any way that you can give, and again, thank you so much, especially during this time of great need for the church and the world. For this week, our reading comes from the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 1 through 12. My child, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and abundant welfare they will give you. Do not let loyalty and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good repute in the sight of God and of people. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own insight. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be a healing for your flesh and a refreshment for your body. Honor the Lord with your substance, and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. My child, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves the one he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. Here ends the reading. The first couple of verses in our reading from Proverbs give us a lot to think about right out of the gate. Do not forget my teachings, but let your hearts keep my commandments. As a pastor, I think about this idea of forgetting things that we teach and preach in the church, whether it's things like the Ten Commandments or the teachings of Jesus in the four Gospels. We can't seem to remember them, not like we can't recite them, word for word, but we just sometimes kind of forget that we're there. We know that they're there, but we just kind of forget. And for me, this kind of weirdly relates to something that a lot of us have experienced, a lot of us have to do, and that's having to take a prescription medication. There's something that we experience that needs medical attention, a symptom of some kind that's not fun, and we are prescribed a medication to help with those symptoms. I'm sure many of you watching this have had an experience like this. You start taking a new medication, and it works great. You're diligent about taking it at the right time, on the right days. Maybe you have to take it with food or on an empty stomach. Maybe you know that it makes you drowsy, so you make sure to take it at night right before you go to sleep and not maybe right before you have to go to work, or drive. And with all that, there is this big noticeable improvement in your life. But then time goes on and you start to develop this sort of new normal, this new habit, and that thing that bothered you before that you have under control, you kind of forget that it was there. You even almost forget kind of what it was like for that to be a part of your everyday life. It's just become this afterthought. And sometimes to the point where we even sometimes mentally convince ourselves that we might just be fine now. We don't really need to keep taking that medication. We're just fine. I'm fine. I've been doing well. But for some reason we forget that it's the medication that's been doing that. And then those times where we unfortunately decide, maybe we don't need, to take them, and we decide not to, and we are reminded quickly of why we did it in the first place. And weirdly for me, this is kind of like what faith is like. I think it brings a lot of value, to the life that we live, and we see the benefits that come with it. The sense of community you get when you gather for worship or for fellowship, the relief that we experience when we practice forgiveness, the calming effects of prayer, and so on and so forth. There are so many benefits to a life of faith. We maybe see this initial improvement in our life, through faith, and we think that things are great, but then we feel like we kind of have it figured out, and we, don't need to gather with others. We don't need to pray. We don't need to practice some of the things that we were, doing before that brought such great improvement, to our life. And when we, kind of step away from those things, then like skipping kind of taking this medication, you kind of get some of the drawbacks again, and those things can kind of creep back into your life. Maybe we begin to realize that, when we rely on our own insight, when we think we have it figured out, right? When we think that we are wise and we are not humble, that's what the proverb warns us against, and we see that can lead us to kind of stumble backwards. But instead, as the writer of the proverb says, we must continue to put our trust in God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not rely on your own insight, and God will make straight your paths. Put trust in God, the source of this faith that gives such great benefits to our life. And it will be, as the proverb says, this healing for our flesh, this refreshment to our body, and this nourishment for our souls. So may we continue to practice faith and honor God with our substance and with the first fruits of all that we produce, remembering to give and to serve first, because there will always be plenty for everyone if we do this. And remember that when we see ourselves as wise in our own eyes, it helps us to sometimes even lean in towards evil when we're supposed to be turning away. So let us continue to put God first, to remember where our faith comes from, and to remember why it is so important in our life. Amen.